evening, my name is Camden and welcome to the start of a new video. In this week's video I'm going to be reading some witchy romance books, just to switch it up a little bit. Romance books are not something that I read all too often, but every once in a while I see one that looks really good, or I get a certain kind of hankering and I just want to pick some up. So the ones I have picked out for this week are sufficiently spooky for this time of year. I have the Ex Hex by Erin Sterling, but this is Rachel Hawkins' pen name. She wrote the Hex Hall series that I never read, and The Wife Upstairs, which I did read. And then the other one that you just saw me pick up at Barnes & Noble is Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. Both of these books have a significant amount of overlap in their plot. Both of them are obviously about witches. Both of them are set in a small town, and both of them involve cursing an ex, I believe. But this one is a sapphic relationship and this one is a heterosexual couple, so there is that for a difference between the two of them. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to read both of these. I did also pick up Sistersong, which you just saw at Barnes & Noble, but this one is completely unrelated to the video. I'm just excited to have it in my collection. Anyway, I'm going to settle in for the night, and I think I'm gonna read these both separately instead of at the same time, which is something that I typically do, especially for videos. I'm gonna start off by reading the Ex Hex, and I'll give you an update when I have one. I have a lot of spooky, witchy related activities this week, which I'm really excited for. I'm gonna try and vlog for you as much as I can, but I am kind of still new to recording in public, and I feel vastly uncomfortable when I have a camera in my hands and people are around. But I am going to Salem with one of my best friends tomorrow, and I'm gonna film as much of that trip as I can because it's the witch town, you know? She's actually in a recreation of a 1600s witch trial. She does like a lot of different theater troupe performances and stuff like that. So I'm going down to support and watch. I can't record the show itself, but I will film as much of my Salem trip as I can for you. And yeah, I guess it's gonna be a fun week. Please excuse my appearance. I am in my pajamas. I have no makeup on. And it's 12 a.m. But I felt like making some cookies. So here we are in my kitchen. I found these bad boys at my local Walmart and got way too excited. I don't even think these were ever a part of my childhood because my mom is more of a cookies from scratch type of a person, but something about them feels nostalgic, even though I think I've only eaten them as an adult. But anyway, perfect. While we were waiting for those to bake, let me tell you a little bit about my book. I am 50 pages into the Ex Hex right now, and I'm liking it pretty well so far. I like our main character Vivi. I think that she is like relatable and fun, and I like reading from her perspective. We have a Welsh male lead, which is usually something I hate, like an American author writing a British character. They always write the like accents and the words that the characters use in such an over-the-top cheesy way, I find, especially in rom-coms. Like, the authors just like take it way too far usually for my taste. But so far I'm finding Reese's character pretty solid. He's not annoying the shit out of me yet, so that's a plus. And of course the magic element is like a cute backdrop to have this romance on. So yeah, I'm liking it. I have not started Payback's a Witch yet. I feel like the plots of these are going to be very similar, even though one's like a sapphic romance and one is a straight relationship. But I'm going to read them at separate times this time around, just so that I don't cross-contaminate the plots. I have positive feelings. 1 minute left on my cookies. Finished. Now I just need to wait for them to cool. This boy got a little damaged in transit. Sorry about it. Good evening. I have a very long overdue reading update for you. I finished the Ex Hex and I have some thoughts to share, but first of all, I'm not really sure I ever gave like a great explanation of what the book's about, so I will start there just in case I didn't. This book is about Vivi and Reese, and they are two witches who dated for one summer in college, and they had a pretty magical summer together. They had a pretty unfriendly type of a breakup, and in her kind of shock and grief over this relationship, Vivi has like a session, drunken session with her cousin, where they're just saying these silly little curses to put on Reese, like that they always hope he has bad hair days, that he is bad in bed from now on, etc. And she thinks this is all in good fun, but as it turns out, she actually does lay a curse on him, or a hex on him, and this isn't discovered until 9 years later, when he comes back to like recharge the magic in this small town that she lives in, that his family founded. And at that point, upon his return, all of these like effects from this hex that she laid on him start to come to fruition, and begins to affect the entire town. That's the baseline for this book. We're following them as they are reconciling, and then also as they're going on this adventure to try and undo the hex that she put on him, as well as save the magic in the town. Now for my thoughts. I wouldn't say that this book is bad. I do have some issues with the way that this is pitched. First of all, this book is kind of supposed to be an even divide between like this adventure that they're going on to try and like undo the hex that she put on him and save the town, and also an exploration of their relationship and them like forgiving each other and getting this relationship back on track, you know what I mean? But there's really like none of that. It's not a good balance between the two elements. The adventure part of it takes way more precedence than the actual relationship does. And there's like the whole reason that they broke up is that she found out he was betrothed to someone else, and there's like no discussion of that whatsoever. Like, we don't know who that girl was that he was betrothed to. They never talk about it. It's just like, I was mad at you because of this, and he's like, you didn't really get it. The end. Like, what? They never discuss it. There's never any closure on that. There's no moment of like discussion or forgiveness or growth or anything. They're just like, 1 minute she hates him, and then the next minute they're like in bed together. And it makes no sense to me. Like, couldn't catch me dead, girl. Couldn't catch me dead. That kind of went off track. My point was, the relationship in here is like as bare of a relationship as you can have and still call it a romance. But honestly, at the end of the day, like, I'm not a romance reader. By nature, I don't read them that often, and I wasn't like overly disappointed that romance wasn't what I got here. I'm just telling you, if you're going in for romance, probably not the right pick for you. But overall, I think it was fun. I think it was not super memorable, but I had a good time reading it anyway. But yeah, so that's that. I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5. I recommend it to you if it's like, you know, Halloween season and you just feel like having like a little adventure without getting anything too serious. I feel like this is probably like the Hallmark equivalent of like a seasonal romance. Okay, and the second update that I have is for Payback's a Witch. I am about a third of the way through it, maybe. I'm like 120 pages into it. And where the Ex Hex was just like not up to par, this book actively offends me. If I haven't explained this before, this book is basically the plotline of the other book. It's about a girl who is returning to her small witchy hometown, and she is going to be like the arbiter of a witchy competition between the 4 founding families. On the very first night back into town, she runs into her ex, who they had like a pretty bad breakup, and she really hates his guts and he's an asshole. And she learns shortly after that he has, in the time since she's been away, and most recently, has been in a relationship with her best friend, Lyndon, and also a girl that she had a crush on in high school named Talia. So they have this plan to get revenge on him during this witchy competition, and they want our main character Emmy's help in doing that. And the romance in this book is between Talia and our main character Emmy. The dialogue in it is so awkward and unnatural and obnoxious that I cannot like get through it easily at all. Like, I am slogging through this book. It took me multiple days to get just this far, and it's like already putting me in such a bad reading slump that like I don't know how like reading's gonna go after this one, because I'm honestly so losing my will, you know what I mean? It's just so clear that the author is like trying to be really like clever and funny, and every single line of dialogue in here has some like quip or like clever witty remark, but none of it's clever or funny. Like, these are jokes that I would have made in my writing when I was like 10 years old writing a book. Like, there's a whole bit about like calling someone a sparkle pony, and I'm like, are we for real right now? Like, it's so vapid. It drives me insane. Honestly, if I was not reading this for a video, I would have DNF'd it by now. But I'm gonna power through for the sake of the video. I didn't cry, I'm just really tired, and my makeup is slowly traveling down my face. I finished both of my books. I have some closing thoughts for you. Let me give you some pros and cons on this one, because the book did improve for me over time. A little bit, but not enough to like save the rating. Some things I liked in this book. I really enjoyed the magic system in this book, or not really like a system, but the use of magic and the descriptions of magic in this book. I feel the magic was much more prevalent and structured in here than it was in this book. This one was just kind of left to the imagination. Our main character comes from a family that is notoriously like the weakest link of the founding families, and her family tends to always be like the historians, the scribes, and the people on the sidelines in this town. So she's always been a little bit ashamed of that. Then her love interest in this book, Talia, is from a family that practices necromancy and like a darker, death-centric magic. They are going up against her ex-boyfriend, who comes from a family that practices, I think they said, like mostly illusions and glamour type magic. And then her best friend is a like natural nature healing type of a witch. And she's from the other founding family. So they all kind of have their own separate types of magic systems, and I found that aspect of the book to be strong and probably one of the strongest. I also did like the magical competition in this book. I think it was interesting to follow, and we got a lot of cool details and insights through that competition. Where I felt that this book fell flat for me, first of all, like I mentioned before, I really felt like the dialogue in this book was weak and unnatural. Every single line of dialogue is like imbued with like large words and like a certain level of like snarky humor and trying to make quips and stuff like that, and I just found that to be tedious to read after a while, and also very like stilted and unnatural as far as like a normal conversation with friends or strangers or family members would go. Not every single line of your conversation with your friends is going to be like bantery. Some of that obviously is good and entertaining and interesting, but becomes a point where it crossed the line into like way too much, and I didn't want to have to dissect every single line of dialogue in this book to like understand the story. So that really took away from my enjoyment. I also found myself really having to suspend some disbelief throughout this book, and that happens in a few different circumstances. One of the biggest things that kept crossing my mind throughout this book, and I don't know if it ever crossed the author's mind while she was writing this, was the fact that 3 women from 3 different founding families all dated and had sex with a male character from the other family. And to me, it kept going through my mind that while yes, there's other people in this town and other witches and other like outsiders even who don't practice witchcraft, the fact that these 4 founding families have been there for like 400 years, and you want me to believe that there's never been ever before a romance between any of these families, like nobody has ever intermarried these families before, and yet this generation of witches are like nailing the crap out of each other. So like, to me, there has to be some distant cousins. Like, they have to be distant cousins somewhere along this line. I just don't buy it. I also felt that this book was just trying to merge together too many different scenarios and plot lines and elements of this story into one book, and I just felt like it got to be too much. For instance, we're led to believe that the entire plot of this book revolves around these 3 women who have been 2-timed by the same guy, all trying to get revenge against him and give him his just desserts. But very quickly that as a plot line really like dropped off the map and didn't have much, if any, resolution at the end of the book. And I feel that that aspect of the book could have been completely written out and nobody would have missed it. They all decide to join forces in this magical competition to try and bring down him and his household. And their reasons for doing that, they honestly have a much better reason for trying to bring this guy down than the fact that he cheated on all of them. And I feel like the reason that they ended up rallying together was much less about him and more about the fact that his family has become the most powerful one in town, and he is like far above the level of success that anyone else has achieved, and they're trying to bring him and his whole family down a peg. So I felt like the cheating aspect and the aspect of them all dating him really became unnecessary to the plot very early on in the story. And then I have the Ex Hex here. It's a good time if you're looking for, you know, this type of book in the autumn time or around Halloween. Like I said, I felt like the romance in this didn't quite deliver to the level that a romance fan and someone who is going into it looking for romance would want. Especially the steamy bits of this were definitely lacking as far as I was concerned. But I do think the adventure in this is, while not as fleshed out as Payback's a Witch, it is a fun time. It's kind of like a little magical witchy romp, and I think it's fun. Definitely though, like between the negatives being very strong negatives and the positives being very strong positives for me in this book, this one is just going to end up being the more forgettable of the two, in my opinion. But anyway, those are the books that I read this week. I'm sorry, I can't recommend you a book that I think will be your new favorite, and that neither of these were like super great hits for me, but I am glad that I read them. Please do all the good things. Like this video, subscribe if you're not, hit the bell icon, share it with a friend who loves books. I will see you next Friday.